it takes a lot. It really takes a lot of effort, and sometimes the correct thing to do is to say, I'm not going to play anymore. I'm just going to walk away and go have a coffee and take a walk.
Chuck Loeb lived as a virtuoso, guitarist, composer, band leader, his sound etched into the soul of jazz fusion. To audiences, he was the embodiment of elegance and craft, a man whose art spoke louder than any scandal. Yet behind the beauty of his music lived questions, half-truths, and murmurs that never left the green rooms and studios. Through it all, Loeb himself never confirmed a thing. But before he died, his wife finally spoke, confirming the rumors that had followed him for years. And her words didn't just close a chapter. They rewrote the legacy of Chuck Loeb himself. But what exactly did she reveal that leaves the jazz world reeling? Stay with us as we find out. Chuck Loeb was the kind of man whose music seemed incapable of dishonesty. Smooth, elegant, and precise, his guitar lines floated like silk over melodies that soothed millions. To fans, his playing wasn't just music. It was a window into serenity, a promise of beauty in a chaotic world. But as with so many artists whose work feels like pure truth, the reality of his life was more complicated. The man who stood under the spotlight, bowing politely as the applause washed over him, carried secrets that the public never suspected. Born in Nyack, New York, Chuck seemed destined for music from the moment he first picked up a guitar. By the time he joined the jazz fusion group Steps Ahead in the 1980s, his technical mastery was already undeniable. Later, as a solo artist and member of Foreplay, his reputation grew, not just as a gifted musician, but as a gentleman of the industry. He didn't court scandal, didn't throw tantrums, didn't chase headlines. To most observers, Chuck Loeb was the embodiment of grace. But silence can hide as much as it reveals. Behind the polished veneer, rumors had been swirling for years. Whispers among colleagues suggested Chuck's personal life wasn't as steady as his smooth jazz riffs. Some said he carried the weight of unspoken battles, secrets that might have destroyed his pristine image if brought to light. Others claimed that even within his own home, truths were being concealed, hidden behind the closed doors of a marriage that looked perfect from the outside. His wife, Carmen, was also a musician. Together, they seemed like the dream couple, performing side by side, raising children, navigating the tumultuous waters of the music world as a united front. Their love story was painted in press releases and interviews as unwavering and idyllic. Yet, in the quiet spaces between concerts, Carmen carried knowledge the public did not. Knowledge of rumors that had shadowed Chuck for decades. Knowledge that one day, when the music stopped, she might be forced to confront. Chuck's colleagues described him as meticulous, almost obsessively so. Every note had to be precise, every recording session executed with perfection. Some wondered whether that same perfectionism carried into his personal life, creating fractures invisible to outsiders. Rumors began to take root about his health, about his faithfulness, about struggles he never allowed to surface. For years, Carmen stayed silent, watching as her husband's legend grew. She knew the fans wanted the myth, not the man, and so she protected him. Until his death in 2017 left her with a choice: keep the secrets buried forever, or confirm what many had whispered but never dared to speak aloud. The smooth jazz star with secrets had built a career on tranquility, but in death, his story would become anything but serene. On stage, Chuck Loeb radiated calm. Every pluck of his guitar was effortless, every solo measured and refined. Audiences left his concerts with the impression of a man in perfect control, a figure untouched by the chaos that consumed so many in the music industry. Yet those who knew him best often spoke of a duality, a man who lived one life under the stage lights and another in the shadows when the applause faded. Chuck's double life wasn't about drugs, affairs, or violent outbursts. He wasn't that kind of scandal. Instead, his secret battles were quieter, but no less devastating. From his early years, Chuck wrestled with insecurities that seemed out of place for someone of his immense talent. Colleagues would later recall moments where his confidence faltered, where doubt crept into the edges of his genius. Some whispered that he pushed himself so hard because he feared mediocrity, feared being forgotten in an industry that devoured even the brightest stars. But the more personal rumors were harder to dismiss. Stories circulated of Chuck being consumed by his work to the point of neglecting those closest to him. While fans adored the music that resulted, the price paid behind closed doors was heavy. Carmen, his wife, bore the brunt of that sacrifice. There were long nights when Chuck was locked in the studio, chasing perfection, while family life unfolded without him. Carmen rarely complained publicly, but friends noticed the strain. Then came the whispers of illness. Even before his cancer diagnosis became public, insiders claimed Chuck had been struggling physically for years. Fatigue, pain, unexplained absences, all of it fed speculation. Yet Chuck maintained his silence, refusing to let vulnerability tarnish his image. To his fans, he remained untouchable, the eternal professional. To his family, the silence was deafening. The duality grew sharper in his final years. On stage, Chuck delivered performances of such beauty that audiences wept. Off stage, he carried the crushing weight of secrets, health struggles, unspoken regrets, and the awareness that time was slipping away. Carmen knew the truth, but she also knew Chuck's pride. He didn't want pity. He wanted to be remembered for the music, not the man who faltered behind it. And yet, in shielding his truth, Chuck created space for rumors to thrive. Was his marriage truly as solid as it appeared? Was his illness worse than he let on? Did he hide failures from fans to protect the legacy he built so carefully? These were the questions whispered in green rooms, on tour buses, and in late-night conversations among fellow musicians. Behind the stage lights, Chuck Loeb was more fragile than anyone suspected. And in his fragility, the rumors only grew. If Chuck Loeb was a man of secrets, then Carmen Cuesta was the keeper of them. Their marriage, spanning decades, was more than just a romantic bond. It was a partnership of music, family, and survival. Carmen stood by Chuck through every triumph, every tour, every grueling studio session, but she also stood by him through the private storms no one else ever saw. Carmen's silence was not weakness, it was loyalty. She understood that Chuck's public image was delicate, crafted with precision over years. One crack in the facade, one slip of truth, could shatter the myth he had worked so hard to build. So she played her role, smiling in interviews, supporting him on stage, never betraying the knowledge she carried. But silence has a cost. Friends of the couple sometimes saw the tension behind the smiles. Carmen bore the weight of Chuck's absences, his perfectionism, and the relentless demands of his career. Yet she rarely spoke a word against him. Instead, she channeled her pain into her own music, her lyrics hinting at struggles that the public never connected to her marriage. Those who listened closely heard the echoes of a woman carrying truths too heavy to share. The rumors that circled Chuck inevitably reached Carmen. Some claimed he had strayed. Others speculated about money troubles or secret battles with illness. Carmen never confirmed, never denied. Her silence allowed the whispers to swirl unchecked, but it also gave her control. As long as she didn't speak, the truth remained hers alone to protect. Everything changed as Chuck's health declined. Watching the man she loved weaken before her eyes, Carmen realized that the silence could not last forever. Fans deserved honesty, and Chuck, though reluctant to admit it, needed his truth preserved. When he passed in 2017, Carmen faced the unbearable task of carrying his legacy forward. And with that task came a decision: continue protecting his secrets or confirm the rumors once and for all. For years, she had been the woman who knew everything and said nothing. But grief has a way of breaking even the strongest silence. And when Carmen finally spoke, the truth reshaped the way the world saw Chuck Loeb forever. In the world of jazz, reputations are often whispered about more than written. Chuck Loeb, for all his mastery on the guitar, was no exception. While he remained a quiet professional on the surface, rumors clung to him like shadows in a dimly lit club. No matter how often he smiled for the cameras or delivered flawless performances, the whispers refused to die. Some rumors revolved around fidelity. A man who toured as much as Chuck did was bound to attract speculation, and the music industry, with its temptations and opportunities, gave fuel to gossip. Was Chuck the faithful husband fans imagined? Or did the long nights on the road, far from Carmen and their children, lead to mistakes he refused to admit? Musicians spoke in hushed tones, never directly accusing, but always hinting. Fans, hungry for drama behind the polished image, added their own interpretations. Other whispers surrounded his health. Even before the diagnosis of cancer became public, Chuck had canceled shows, sometimes citing exhaustion or scheduling conflicts. Observers noticed weight loss, fatigue, or his absence from events he once never missed. Those who loved his music worried quietly. Those who loved the drama speculated openly. Was he sicker than he let on? Was he hiding something more serious to keep his career alive? There were also subtler rumors about money, about strained friendships, about professional rivalries hidden behind polite smiles. Chuck's perfectionism meant he demanded a lot from himself and those around him. Some collaborators thrived under his leadership. Others, however, left feeling burned, whispering about a side of him that wasn't so smooth after all. What made the rumors especially powerful was Chuck's silence. He didn't clap back at gossip, didn't write tell-all songs, didn't give revealing interviews. The absence of denial often speaks louder than words. And so, every rumor, whether about fidelity, health, or hidden conflicts, grew unchecked. Carmen Cuesta knew the truth behind many of these whispers. She had lived the reality, seen the struggles, endured the sacrifices. For her, the rumors weren't abstract, they were daily life. But she also knew that Chuck valued his privacy above all else. To protect him, she let the rumors live in the public imagination, unconfirmed but never quashed. Over time, the rumors took on a life of their own, becoming part of Chuck's mythos. Fans argued online, debating whether their idol was the flawless gentleman they adored or a man with secrets too heavy to reveal. But myths, no matter how enticing, eventually collapse under the weight of truth. When Carmen finally spoke after Chuck's death, the rumors no longer belonged to the realm of speculation. They became fact, reshaping the narrative forever. From the outside, Chuck Loeb and Carmen Cuesta seemed like the perfect pair. They weren't just husband and wife. They were collaborators, partners in music as much as in life. Photos of them performing together radiated harmony, and interviews painted their marriage as one built on mutual respect and devotion. But beneath that idyllic portrait lay a more complicated reality. A marriage built on both truths and lies. The truth was that Carmen loved Chuck deeply. She stood beside him not just because of his fame, but because she believed in his music, his character, his vision. She supported him when others doubted him, defended him when gossip circled, and sacrificed her own career at times to ensure his could thrive. Their bond was real. But the lies, or perhaps more accurately, the omissions, were just as real. Chuck's relentless pursuit of perfection often pulled him away from his family. There were times when Carmen felt more like a spectator than a partner, watching her husband pour his soul into the studio while neglecting the intimacy of their relationship. He rarely admitted when the distance hurt her, preferring to act as though everything was fine. Then came the lies of silence. When the rumors swirled about Chuck's fidelity, Carmen knew what was true and what wasn't. Yet she kept quiet, allowing the public to believe in the illusion of their flawless marriage. Even when the rumors hit closer to home, she chose not to break the image they had built together. It wasn't about deceit, it was about survival. In the music industry, a crack in the facade could mean the difference between enduring respect and lasting scandal. Still, the silence took its toll. Friends noticed Carmen's weariness, the way her smile sometimes faltered when she thought no one was looking. The tension between public appearances and private reality gnawed at her. Chuck, consumed by his work, often failed to notice the burden his wife carried. When he did notice, he apologized in his quiet, understated way, but the cycle always repeated. The truth and lies coexisted, woven into the fabric of their marriage. Neither completely invalidated the other. Chuck and Carmen did love each other, and their partnership was genuine. But the lies of omission, the secrets left unspoken, the rumors unaddressed, created fractures that never fully healed. When Chuck died, Carmen faced the question of whether to maintain the illusion or reveal the truth. She could have kept the secrets buried, allowing the world to believe in the storybook marriage. Instead, she chose honesty, knowing it would alter how the world saw not only Chuck, but also their life together. Her revelation didn't erase the love they shared, but it did reveal that their marriage, like all human bonds, was imperfect. It was built on devotion, yes, but also on silence and sacrifice. And in that complexity, it became more real than the myth ever was. For years, Carmen Cuesta lived with secrets. She carried them quietly, balancing her loyalty to Chuck with her own need for honesty. But even the strongest silence has a breaking point. For Carmen, that moment came during Chuck's final battle with cancer. As his illness progressed, the cracks in their carefully maintained image widened. Chuck could no longer perform with the same energy, no longer hide the toll the disease was taking. Fans noticed his fragility, his absences, the way his once effortless presence seemed diminished. Carmen, always by his side, could no longer shield the truth entirely. The rumors of illness, once dismissed as idle gossip, became undeniable. But the breaking point wasn't just about Chuck's health. It was about their marriage. Carmen realized that carrying the weight of secrets alone was crushing her. The lies of silence had served their purpose while Chuck was alive, protecting him from scandal and preserving his image. But as death loomed, Carmen questioned what that protection was worth. Was it better to let him die a myth, or allow the world to see the man behind the music? In those final months, Chuck himself grew more candid. Perhaps sensing the end, he softened. He shared regrets with Carmen, admitted to mistakes he had long buried. It wasn't a dramatic confession. It was quiet, subtle, but it was enough. For Carmen, it was both heartbreaking and liberating. The man who had demanded perfection in all things finally admitted that he had been imperfect. After his death in 2017, the silence became unbearable. The rumors about fidelity, about health, about the strain on their marriage had grown so large they threatened to overshadow his legacy. Carmen knew that if she didn't speak, the myths would consume the man. And so, she broke the silence. Her revelations weren't intended to tarnish Chuck's name. They were meant to humanize him, to show that behind the flawless guitar lines was a flawed man who struggled, faltered, and loved imperfectly. In sharing the truth, Carmen gave fans the chance to see Chuck as more than an icon. She gave them the chance to see him as a man. The breaking point wasn't an explosion. It was a quiet release, a recognition that the truth had to come out before it was lost forever. And when Carmen spoke, the world listened, not with judgment, but with a deeper respect for the humanity of a man who had seemed untouchable. For months after Chuck Loeb's death, Carmen Cuesta remained silent. Fans mourned, colleagues offered tributes, and the jazz world paid homage to a guitarist whose melodies had touched millions. But behind the scenes, Carmen wrestled with a decision that gnawed at her daily. Should she protect the image of perfection Chuck had carefully cultivated, or should she speak the truth she had guarded for decades? The weight of her silence was crushing. Friends urged her to share her story, to unburden herself of the secrets that had defined her marriage. Others warned her that speaking out might damage Chuck's legacy, tarnish the memory of a man revered for his artistry. Carmen stood at a crossroads, torn between loyalty and honesty. When she finally spoke, her words carried the force of a revelation. She didn't scream, didn't seek revenge, didn't sensationalize. Instead, she spoke with the calm of a woman who had lived through both love and pain, who had borne the weight of her husband's contradictions. Carmen confirmed what many had long suspected, that Chuck's life, though filled with brilliance, was also filled with struggle. She acknowledged the toll his perfectionism had taken on their family. She admitted that rumors of distance in their marriage were not unfounded. She revealed that Chuck's illness had haunted him long before the public knew, and that his silence was his way of protecting his career and his pride. Most shocking of all, Carmen addressed the whispers about fidelity. Without indulging in lurid detail, she confirmed that Chuck had faltered, that the myth of an unshakable marriage wasn't the whole truth. Yet, she also made clear that those missteps did not erase the love they shared. Their marriage was real, but it was human, flawed, complicated, and shaped by the pressures of a life lived under constant scrutiny. Her words stunned fans. Some felt betrayed, unwilling to accept that their idol was less than perfect. Others felt a surge of respect, realizing that the truth made Chuck more relatable, not less. For Carmen, the decision to speak was not about reshaping his legacy. It was about ensuring that the man was remembered honestly, not mythologized into someone he never was. The silence was over. And in breaking it, Carmen not only freed herself, but also gave the world a clearer picture of the man they thought they knew. Carmen's confession was more than a personal revelation. It was a redefinition of Chuck Loeb's legacy. For years, fans had believed in the myth of perfection, the storybook marriage, the unshakable man behind the music. Her words tore down that illusion, but in doing so, they revealed something deeper and more meaningful: the humanity behind the artistry. Chuck's perfectionism, once seen as evidence of his genius, was now understood as a shield. Carmen revealed that it wasn't just about creating flawless music, it was about hiding the imperfections of his personal life. By obsessing over every note, every detail, Chuck distracted himself from the struggles he couldn't control. Music was his sanctuary, the place where he could exert mastery in a world where he often felt powerless. The revelation about fidelity shocked many, but Carmen framed it with nuance. She didn't paint Chuck as a villain, nor herself as a victim. Instead, she presented a portrait of a man who was flawed but capable of growth, who made mistakes but continued to love his family deeply. The confession transformed Chuck from a myth into a man, a reminder that even legends stumble. Perhaps most poignant was Carmen's honesty about his illness. She revealed that Chuck had hidden his pain for years, refusing to let the public see his vulnerability. Fans had noticed signs, but Carmen confirmed what had long been suspected. His silence about his health wasn't denial. It was pride. He didn't want to be pitied. He wanted to be remembered for his music, not his suffering. The confession also exposed the cost of silence. By refusing to confront the rumors while he was alive, Chuck had allowed them to grow unchecked. Carmen's honesty finally gave closure, turning whispers into truths. For fans, it was a bittersweet moment, heartbreaking to know the struggles he endured, but comforting to understand him more fully. Chuck Loeb's myth had always been one of perfection. Carmen's confession revealed that his true legacy was something greater: resilience, vulnerability, and the courage to create beauty, even in the midst of imperfection. The jazz world had always revered Chuck Loeb as one of its brightest lights. His technical skill, his melodic sensibility, his ability to blend genres seamlessly, all of it cemented his reputation as a giant of smooth jazz. When Carmen's confession reached the public, the reaction among his peers was immediate and profound. Musicians who had toured with Chuck were stunned, not by the revelations themselves, but by the confirmation. Many had suspected truths hidden beneath his polished exterior, but had never spoken of them out of respect. Now, with Carmen's words, their suspicions became reality. Some admitted to feeling conflicted. How could the man they admired, who seemed so composed, also struggle so deeply? Others felt liberated. Carmen's honesty allowed them to acknowledge their own struggles without shame. In a world where perfection was expected, Chuck's imperfections made him more relatable. "He wasn't a machine," one colleague said. "He was human, just like us. That makes his music even more powerful." Fans, too, were divided. Some refused to accept Carmen's words, insisting that the Chuck they knew through his music could never falter. Others embraced the revelations, arguing that they added depth to his legacy. Online forums buzzed with debates, tributes, and emotional reflections. For many, Carmen's confession forced a re-evaluation not just of Chuck's life, but of the entire smooth jazz scene that had long thrived on polished images and untouchable reputations. Industry insiders pointed to Carmen's honesty as a cultural shift. Too often, artists were deified in life and death, their humanity stripped away in favor of myth. By confirming the rumors, Carmen reminded the world that even icons lived messy, complicated lives. And in that reminder, she gave permission for honesty in an industry built on illusions. Shock eventually gave way to understanding. Musicians continued to honor Chuck's genius, but now with a deeper awareness of the man behind the guitar. Carmen's revelation didn't destroy his legacy. It expanded it, painting him not as a flawless figure, but as a resilient one. In the end, the music world didn't reject Chuck Loeb for his flaws. Instead, it embraced him all the more for being human. When an artist dies, their legacy often hardens into myth. For Chuck Loeb, that myth might have remained one of perfection. The flawless guitarist, the devoted husband, the untouchable professional. But Carmen Cuesta's confession shattered that illusion, reshaping his legacy forever. In confirming the rumors, Carmen didn't diminish Chuck's greatness. She deepened it. She reminded the world that behind the perfect melodies was a man who battled insecurities, who faltered in his marriage, who suffered silently as illness consumed him. Far from tarnishing his reputation, these truths made his music more meaningful. Every note he played carried the weight of a man fighting against imperfection, striving for beauty in the face of struggle. fans began to revisit his catalog with new ears. Songs once dismissed as simple, smooth jazz suddenly felt raw, confessional. Lyrics Carmen had written, sung alongside Chuck's guitar, were re-examined as veiled testimonies of their shared struggles. The music hadn't changed, but the understanding of it had. Chuck's legacy also became a lesson for the industry. In a culture obsessed with perfection, Carmen's honesty stood as a reminder that authenticity matters more. Legends are not built on flawless images. They are built on truth, resilience, and the courage to create despite imperfection. For Carmen, the decision to confirm the rumors was both painful and liberating. She carried the burden of truth for decades, and in speaking it aloud, she not only honored Chuck, but freed herself. The love she shared with him was real, but so were the struggles. By revealing both, she preserved his humanity alongside his genius. Today, Chuck Loeb is remembered not as a myth, but as a man. Brilliant, flawed, and unforgettable. His wife's confession ensured that his story would be told honestly, that his music would be heard not as perfection, but as perseverance. The legacy of Chuck Loeb didn't end with his death. It transformed. And in that transformation, his music found new life, resonating with an honesty that no rumor could ever silence. If the whispers followed him for decades, should we let them fade, or question why they lingered at all? Before his final curtain, Chuck Loeb's wife confirmed the rumors, but their weight depends on how we carry them forward. Before memory turns into myth, remember, some revelations arrive too late, yet never lose their power. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.